The frozen night, the wind howled through the empty snowfields, a wild cry that seemed to come from the mountains themselves. Captain Rin Carter stood by the fire inside his small wooden cabin, listening to the storm hammer the walls. Nights like this were dangerous. Even humans born on this icy world rarely dared to step outside. He was pouring himself a cup of coffee when it happened. 3 slow knocks. Rin froze. No one came to his cabin at night. His nearest neighbor was 6 kilometers away, and the colonies. Law was clear: never open your door to strangers during a storm. The knocks came again, weaker this time. Rin set down the mug, his hand hovering near the old pulse pistol on the table. He walked to the door and unlatched it just enough to peer outside. At first, all he saw was snow-thick, blinding white. Then a shadow moved. A small figure stood on his porch, shivering so violently he could hear the rattling breath. She wasn't human. Her skin was a pale silver blue, faintly glowing under the dim porch light. Her hair, soaked and tangled, clung to her cheeks. Thin clothes hung from her frame, torn and ragged, offering no protection from the cold. Her golden eyes looked up at him, desperate and tired. Please. Her voice was barely more than a whisper. I can cook. I can give you children. Just don't send me away. Rin's grip tightened on the door. His first thought was that she was delirious. No one sane would walk through a blizzard dressed like that. His second thought was more dangerous. If she was here, someone would be looking for her. I don't take in strangers, Rin said carefully, eyes scanning the darkness behind her, especially not in the middle of the night. A sudden flash lit the sky far off like lightning, but sharper. It wasn't lightning. It was a search drone. She staggered forward, one hand clutching the doorway as if she might collapse. The wind screamed louder, pushing fine ice into the cabin. Rin's instincts told him to shut the door, pretend he saw nothing. But her eyes, those golden eyes, were the eyes of someone who had run until there was nothing left to give. Someone who had no home to return to. Inside, he muttered, pulling her in before he could change his mind. The warmth of the cabin hit her like a wave. She stumbled, almost falling to her knees, but Rin caught her arm. It was shockingly cold to the touch, as if she had been carved from ice. Sit, he ordered, pointing to a chair near the fire. She obeyed without a word, curling up as close to the flames as she dared. Steam began to rise from her wet clothes, but her lips were still pale. Rin poured another mug of coffee, hesitated, and set it in front of her. She stared at it like it was the most precious thing in the galaxy. Slowly, she lifted it to her lips and took a sip. Her hands shook, not from fear, but exhaustion. Name? Rin asked. She blinked, as if the word confused her. Sarai. Where are you from, Sarai? Her gaze dropped to the floor. Far. I cannot go back. That was all she said. Rin leaned back in his chair, watching her. She didn't seem like a threat, but that didn't mean she wasn't dangerous. He'd lived long enough on the frontier to know trouble when it knocked on your door. And trouble often came in the shape of people who looked too desperate to lie. The fire popped. Outside, the wind rose to a howl again, shaking the cabin. Then Rin's attention caught on something small, barely visible under the torn collar of her shirt. A faint, blinking red light. A tracker. He didn't know whether it was human tech or alien, but he knew what it meant. She was being hunted, and now so was he. Rin stood slowly, walked around behind her, and without warning, yanked the tracker free. She gasped, but before she could speak, he smashed it under his boot. The light went out with a crunch. For a moment, the only sound was the storm. Then Sarai's eyes widened. You shouldn't have done that, she said softly. Now they will come faster. Rin's jaw tightened. "Who's coming?" She didn't answer. Somewhere out there, far beyond the snow and dark, a faint mechanical hum began to rise. Not thunder, not wind. Drones. They were coming. Asterisk, the dangerous offer. The sound outside grew louder, the low mechanical hum becoming a sharp, rhythmic buzz. Rin moved to the window and carefully pulled back the curtain. Through the swirling snow, tiny red lights flickered in the dark drones, sweeping the land in tight, searching arcs. Sarai's eyes followed him, her hands tightening around the warm mug. "If they find me, they will take me back. And they will kill you." Rin didn't answer. Instead, he checked the charge on his pulse pistol, then shut off the cabin lights. A fire's glow became the only light inside, casting both of their faces in an uneasy orange. "Tell me," he said at last, "why would you walk into a human's home, in the middle of nowhere, offering to cook and give children?" Her voice was quiet but steady. "Because I have nothing else to give, and because I know humans value family." Rin frowned. "That's not an answer." She met his gaze then, golden eyes glimmering with something that wasn't fear. It was resolve. "I ran from someone very powerful, a lord in my people's council. To him, I am property. I was raised to serve, to obey. But I learned things I was not supposed to know, things that could destroy him. That is why he hunts me." Rin didn't like where this was going. "So you're saying, if I keep you here, I'm putting a target on my back?" "Yes," she said simply, "but I can make myself worth the risk." Before Rin could ask what she meant, she stood and walked to his small kitchen. Her hands moved quickly, pulling down pots, opening drawers, finding ingredients as if she already knew where everything was. Within minutes, the smell of sizzling meat and herbs began to fill the cabin. It was strange. She moved like someone who had studied human kitchens before, copying the motions perfectly. She even whistled softly, though the tune was unfamiliar. When she set the bowl of stew in front of him, Rin hesitated. "You really think a meal is going to change my mind?" "It's not the meal," she replied, sitting across from him. "It's that I understand humans better than my own kind. I know your strengths. I know your weaknesses. I can make you stronger." Rin took a bite and froze. It was perfect. The taste was rich, warm, and comforting, the kind of food that made you forget about the cold outside. But before he could comment, the faint thump of snow against the cabin wall made him look up. Not snow. Footsteps. I went pale. "They're here." Rin moved to the window again. 3 dark figures were moving through the snow, the red lights of their drones circling above them. These weren't colonists. Their armor was heavy, angular, and marked with an alien crest he didn't recognize. He turned back to Sarai. "If they come in here, can you fight?" Her lips curved into a small, dangerous smile. "I can do more than fight. But I'll need your trust first." The cabin's door rattled under a hard knock. And just like that, Rin realized whatever she was offering, it wasn't just cooking and children. She was offering an alliance. The kind that could change everything. Asterisk. The hunt begins. The pounding on the door came again, harder this time, shaking the frame. "Open." A deep, metallic voice barked. "This is a sanctioned retrieval. The fugitive belongs to the House of Orcs." Rin didn't move. He kept his voice low, eyes on Sarai. "If I hand you over, they'll leave me alone?" Her reply was calm. "For a few days. Then they will kill you anyway. No one who sees me stays alive." The door shook again. Outside, the whine of drones grew sharper, scanning every inch of the cabin. Rin knew he had seconds. He raised his pistol, but not at the door. Instead, he tossed it to Sarai. Her hands caught it perfectly. No hesitation, no fumbling. She checked the charge as if she'd been using human weapons all her life. You said you could fight, Rin muttered. Prove it. The next moment, the lock burst open. A tall, armored figure stepped inside, visor glowing red. Two more followed, weapons raised. Sarai moved before Rin could blink. She ducked under the first attacker's aim, firing twice, one shot to the chest, one to the leg. The alien collapsed, armor sparking. She kicked the second in the knee, twisted his weapon from his grip, and used it to blast the third dot. It was over in less than 10 seconds. The drones outside reacted instantly, swooping toward the windows. Sarai grabbed Rin's arm. We can't. Stay? Rin snatched his coat, but his eyes were still locked on her. Where in the hell did you learn to do that? She didn't answer, only pulled him toward the back door. Snow whipped at their faces as they ran into the storm. Behind them, the cabin's windows lit up in flashes. The drones had opened fire. They pushed through the blizzard until Rin could barely see. The cold bit into his skin, and his lungs burned, but Sarai kept moving, guiding him with unerring precision. She seemed to know exactly where to go. Finally, they reached a narrow cave entrance hidden under a rock ledge. Inside, the wind faded to a low moan. Rin leaned against the wall, catching his breath. You're not just some runaway servant. Sarai's golden eyes gleamed in the dark. No, I was the shadow bride of Lord Varric, trained to kill for him, to protect him. Until I learned the truth, Rin frowned. And now you want me to protect you? No, she said softly, stepping closer. I want to protect you, because what's chasing me isn't just one noble's pride. It's the entire council. And when they find us, they will burn this world to the ground. Outside, faint red lights moved through the snow. More hunters were closing in. This wasn't just a rescue anymore. It was a war. Asterisk, the bond in the storm, the red lights in the snow. We're getting closer. Rin checked his pistol, half a charge left. It wouldn't be enough if the hunters came in force. Sarai tilted her head, listening. They're splitting into two teams. One will circle around. The other is coming straight here. Rin narrowed his eyes. How do you know that? A faint smile touched her lips. I was one of them once. I know how they think. Before he could ask more, a deep rumble rolled through the ground. Dust trickled from the cave ceiling. Sarai's expression changed instantly. We need to move, now. What is it? Rin asked, grabbing his gear. Not them, she said. The ice. The cave floor vibrated again, this time stronger. Outside, the wind screamed louder, snow swirling in violent spirals. Rin followed Sarai out into the storm and froze at the sight. A massive ice shelf, hidden in the cliff above, was beginning to crack. The shifting weight groaned like an ancient beast waking up. One wrong step and the entire ledge could collapse, burying them alive. Sarai scanned the terrain quickly. There's a ridge 200 meters west. If we get there before the shelf breaks, we live. And if we don't? She didn't answer. They ran. The snow was blinding, the wind pushing them back. Rin's boots slipped on the frozen ground, but Sarai never slowed. She moved like she belonged to the storm. Halfway there, a drone appeared. Out of the white, its sensors locking on them. A beam of red light swept across Rin's chest. Before he could aim, Sarai grabbed a chunk of ice and hurled it with precision. The drone's propeller shattered, sending it spinning into the snow. The sound of cracking ice grew louder, deeper. A sharp boom echoed across the valley as the first section of the shelf gave way, sending tons of ice crashing down in the distance. They reached the ridge just as the world behind them collapsed. The roar was deafening. Waves of snow and shattered ice rolled past where they had been seconds earlier. Breathing hard, Rin glanced at Sarai. She was covered in frost, cheeks flushed from the cold, golden eyes bright with adrenaline. "You just saved my life," he said. She shrugged lightly. "We're not even yet." The wind eased slightly, giving them a moment's silence. That was when Sarai pulled something small from her belt, a slim, curved blade with markings Rin didn't recognize. "I swore I'd never use this for anyone again," she said softly. "But if I'm to protect you, I will." Rin met her gaze. "And what if I decide I don't want your protection?" She stepped closer, her voice low but firm. "Then I will stay anyway, because you are the only human who opened the door." Far off, more red lights flickered in the storm. The hunters weren't done. This fight was only beginning. Asterisk. The last stand the ridge gave them a brief shelter, but Sarai knew it wouldn't last. "They'll track our heat signatures," she said, scanning the horizon. "We need wall-strong ones." Rin pointed west. "There's an old Comes outpost. 2 clicks from here. Abandoned since the storms cut the line. If we can reach it, we can make it a fortress." Sarai finished for him. The wind wasn't as fierce now, but the cold sank deeper into their bones as they pushed toward the outpost. The building emerged from the white, like a ghost steel walls, half buried in snow. A broken Comes tower leaning at a dangerous angle. Inside, it smelled of rust and frost. The main hall was intact, with heavy doors that could be sealed from within. Rin started checking the old power grid, while Sarai paced the perimeter, eyes sharp. "They'll hit fast," she said. 2 wave scouts to find us, heavies to finish the job. "Then we greet them in style," Rin replied. They moved quickly, Rin setting up trip mines from the old armory, while Sarai rigged a signal jammer out of stripped Comes parts. Every so often, she would explain in short bursts where the hunters would breach, how they'd react when they'd retreat. Her mind worked like a soldier's, or a predator's. By the time the first scout drones arrived, the outpost was ready. The jammer flared to life, cutting the drone's feeds mid-flight. The sudden silence seemed to confuse them, just long enough for Rin to drop 2 with precise pistol shots. And the heavies came. 3 figures in black armor charged through, the snow rifles blazing. The doors shuddered under the impact. Sarai stood by one of the side corridors, holding her curved blade. The moment the breach charge blew, she was in motion, slipping past the first attacker's guard and driving the blade into a seam in his armor. Rin's mines detonated near the doorway, throwing the other 2 back in a storm of fire and ice. But one rose again, limping forward. Rin fired, but his pistol clicked empty. The hunter raised his rifle, and Sarai was there, between them, her blade flashing once, twice. The alien fell, the snow around him turning dark. Silence returned, broken only by their breathing. Rin lowered his weapon slowly. "You planned every move before they even arrived." She nodded, wiping frost from her face. "I told you I know how they think. I used to be them." The weight of what she'd done and what she was now risking settled between them. Then Sarai stepped closer, her voice quiet but steady. "You saved me from the cold. Now I've saved you from the hunters. Whatever comes next, we face it together." Outside, more lights were gathering in the storm. This wasn't over. But Rin no longer felt like he was protecting a stranger, was standing beside a partner. Asterisk, a place to belong. The wind outside had died down, but the silence felt heavier than the storm. The dead hunters lay half buried in snowdrifts, their armor already frosting over. Rin kicked one of the helmets aside and scanned the ridge. No movement. For now, they were safe. Sarai stood at the doorway, her golden eyes tracking the empty horizon. "They'll send more," she said quietly. "Varric will not stop until I'm either back in chains or dead." Rin holstered his pistol. "Then let him come. We'll be ready." They spent the rest of the day clearing the outpost, repairing the doors, and salvaging whatever they could from the fallen attackers. By nightfall, the place had heat again. The fire in the corner crackled warmly, throwing shadows across the walls. Sarai sat by the flames, wrapped in one of Rin's heavy blankets. The weariness on her face was clear, but for the first time since he'd met her, there was no fear in her eyes. "You still mean what you said?" Rin asked from across the room. "About staying?" She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. "I told you, I can cook, I can make a home, and I can give you children. But more than that, I can fight beside you if you'll have me." Rin didn't answer right away. Instead, he pulled a small metal tag from his pocket, a military ID, scratched and worn. He tossed it into her lap. "What is this?" she asked. "My name," he said simply. "And now it's yours, too, if you want it." Her eyes widened, but she closed her hand around the tag without hesitation. "Then I stay." For the first time in years, Rin allowed himself a small smile. "Welcome home, Sarai." The firelight danced in her golden eyes, and for a moment, the cold world outside didn't matter. But high above the snowfields, in the upper atmosphere, a sleek black ship drifted silently. Inside, a tall alien with silver armor stood at the viewing deck, his hands clasped behind his back. "Track them," Lord Varric said. "Don't move in yet. I want them to believe they are safe." On the frozen world below, in the quiet warmth of the outpost, Sarai leaned against Rin's shoulder never, knowing that her past was already on its way to claim her. Asterisk,